Good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. So, what do you think? I've been listening to the radio. Looking at the YouTube. How you sleeping? Let's see how indignant these guys can be.
Another day of Red Bull domination. It's a Mercedes 1. J.D. Vance is the single strangest Republican candidate for vice president in history, including Spiro Agnew, who ultimately pleaded guilty to tax evasion for all the bribes that he took, had to resign from the vice presidency. J.D. Vance has said that single women who do not have, or any women, married women, who do not have biological children, disorient and really disturb him, and he does not want them to be teachers. All of my elementary school teachers were women who did not have children. They were all in the Catholic order of the Sisters of St. Joseph. They taught me to read and write. J.D. Vance has been a Catholic for about 5 years, so he may never have met a nun. He certainly was never taught by a nun. But he is willing to condemn them because he is so profoundly weird, as Tim Walz would put it. The Republican candidates for president and vice president used to both be named Donald. Now only one of them is. James Donald Bowman is the name on J.D. Vance's birth certificate. His mother changed his name when she remarried and didn't just change his last name, she changed his middle name to David. He then went through life as James David Hamill. Went to college under that name, went to law school under that name. Before he got married, he changed his last name to Vance, which is his grandmother's last name. Using the initials JD just might be his way of eliminating his own personal confusion over whether his name should be James Donald or James David. James David Vance's name changes could be an enlightening experience for him. Perhaps J.D. Vance has insights learned the hard way about kids struggling with their identities. J.D. Vance's history of name changes could mean that he is now someone who really knows who he is, because, unlike most of us, he actually named himself in his final age. An enlightening experience for him. Perhaps J.D. Vance has insights learned the hard way about kids struggling with their identities. J.D. Vance's history of name changes could mean that he is now someone who really knows who he is, because, unlike most of us, he actually named himself in his final name change. Or perhaps his three different names over time have created a discomfort in him, a discomfort with himself that sometimes could leave him disconnected from other people. And if that's the case, that means that the Republican candidate for president and the Republican candidate for vice president are both, in the most important possible ways for politicians, disconnected from people, especially people they have never met. Good politicians have to spend their lives thinking about the lives of people they don't know and what they might be able to do to turn government in a direction that will help the lives of people they don't know. And that is why what happened to J.D. Vance recently, when he walked into a donut shop, is just so weird and interesting. J.D. Vance did that standard politician performance to show everyone what a regular guy he is, but the only thing he could think of to say to the people who worked there was the question of, how long have you worked here? That was it. And when they told him 2 years or 6 months, he would just say, okay. That was it. That was his entire interaction. It was widely reviewed as a failure to demonstrate that James David Vance is a regular guy. He just had no idea what to say to those working people. No idea at all. He had no curiosity about how many jobs they might be working. He had no curiosity about whether they're making the minimum wage, as is common in places like that. There is no evidence that J.D. Vance knows what the minimum wage is. And it could not have been more clear. No one in that donut shop cared who J.D. Vance is or had any curiosity about him. It just wasn't a human exchange. Donald Trump, who you know cares nothing about anyone working in a donut shop anywhere on the planet, would have done slightly better than J.D. Vance in that donut shop because he would have kept his stupid bluster flowing at least and filled up the dead air with some nonsense language. Tim Walz is right. They're weird. Weird in the sense that they are not in any way like other people. Donald Trump and James David Vance are not anything like the voters they are appealing to. Keep that in mind now when we show you what Tim Walz and Kamala Harris did and said today. And know that neither of the men on the Republican ticket could possibly appeal to people and identify with people the way Tim Walz and Kamala Harris can wherever they go. We begin with Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz in Boston this morning, speaking to the convention of the International Association of Firefighters. I'm going to say this because I know we're bipartisan. Some of the gray hairs in here, I know what you're thinking. And I remember it too because it's my family. When Republicans used to talk about freedom, they meant it. They meant it. Not anymore. These guys over there, they want government to have the freedom to invade every corner of your life. From our union halls to our kids' schools, even our doctor's office. Vice President and I, we got a little bit different vision of this. We believe that you, not politicians, should be free to make your own healthcare choices. We believe that workers deserve to collectively bargain for fair wages, safe working conditions, good healthcare, and secure retirement. No interference from government.
And if you believe
Who
that,
still wears these headphones these days? Try this.
The Swedes admitted that the donation of these planes and many other provisions in the package meant a temporary vulnerability in their territorial defense. However, they decided to take what Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson called a calculated risk. Perhaps the words of his Danish counterpart, Mette Frederiksen, came to mind. Early in 2024, she pointed out that it was better for European countries to sacrifice their own arsenals temporarily to ensure Russia's defeat far from their own homelands, rather than having to potentially use those weapons against an emboldened Putin far closer to home. Sweden plans to make up for the shortage of command and control planes by purchasing additional S-106 GlobalEye aircraft. This is Saab's newest AWACS aircraft and entered service in 2020. Sweden also insists that it has plans to replenish all of the ammunition and other equipment it will lose once they arrive in Ukraine. Sweden intends to do this by increasing its defense spending. In September 2023, Stockholm announced its intention to increase its military budget by 28% for 2024. Additional increases will come in 2025 and 26. These increases will put Sweden over the NATO target of spending 2% of GDP on defense by appropriations. The budget increases will also likely make Sweden an enduring and reliable partner for Ukraine. Stockholm has indeed already announced that its partnership with Ukraine will be for the long haul. On May 23rd, Prime Minister Kristersson said that Sweden will be providing Ukraine with $7 billion in aid over the course of 3 years to repel the invasion. Again, those kinds of sales don't happen unless the buyers are happy with the product, and a happy buyer, in military terms, should indicate that a country is producing good weapons, or in Russia's case, was producing good weapons. The fact is that Russian weapon sales have been declining steadily for years. We saw a hint of this in the 2010s, with Visual Capitalist showing that Russia's exports dropped below the $20 billion mark between 2000 and 2004, less than half of the sales being achieved during the 1980s. A recovery in the years that followed pushed Russia's exports back up to the $30 billion mark. But in more recent years, Russia's weapon exports have declined dramatically. Of course, some could argue that this is only logical. Russia is engaged in a long conflict with Ukraine, so it's only natural that the country will be stockpiling weapons to send to its troops rather than selling them to other countries. And that would make sense were it not for the fact that the decline began long before Putin invaded Ukraine. According to GIS, the Geopolitical Analysis and Forecasting Company, Russia's share of the global arms market dropped from 22% between 2013 and 17 down to 16% between 2018 and 22. You'll note these are the 4 years leading up to the Ukraine war, showing that the world's opinions on Russian weapons were declining well before the conflict began. The loss of so many sales to India has been the lowlight of this period. On the same day, in the same attack, a Tonets-class patrol boat was sunk. September 24th, 2023, Ukraine switches back to naval drones, damaging the Project 22160 patrol ship of the Russian Navy called Sergei Kotov. But this attack only managed to damage the ship. The Ukrainian Navy got the job done on March 5th, 2024, when the Magura V5 maritime drones sank Sergei Kotov off the coast of Crimea. This was the third notable ship Ukraine managed to sink in 2024. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Not when the Ukrainian Navy managed to damage 2 more Russian vessels in 2023. The first was on November 4th. The Ukrainian forces used missiles to strike Zalek shipbuilding hub in Kerch, Crimea. This attack damaged the brand new Karakud-class corvette Askol, armed with Caliber cruise missiles. The corvette, still in sea trials, was deemed a total loss following the November strike. December 26th, 2023. Ukraine's Air Force launches Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missiles that strike Novocherkassk from a Russian-class landing ship docked in Feodosia, Crimea. Does the name sound familiar? It should, as this is the same landing ship that was targeted in the March 2022 attacks. The NF fled the scene with minimal damage. Now, if Ukrainian reports are to be believed, Novocherkassk was mobile. The Ukrainian attack seemingly detonated munitions aboard the ship, leading to a massive explosion that reportedly claimed the lives of at least 33 of the 74 crew members. Taking out Novocherkassk meant significantly impeding the Russian Navy's ability to further invade Ukraine's Black Sea coast, which made this attack a triumphant way to close out 2023. February 2024 ushered in a new chapter in the Russo-Ukrainian naval conflict, equally devastating for the Black Sea Fleet. February 1st, 2024, one of 20 Tarantul-class corvettes, the Ivanovets, is reportedly sunk in Donyaslav, Crimea, courtesy of the Magura V5 maritime drones. Just before it sank below the surface, stern up, the ship's magazine detonated, leading to a spectacular series of explosions, quite a send-off for the Ivanovets. February 14th, 2024. Ukraine finishes off another vessel that was previously damaged in March 2022. The large Rapusha 1-class landing ship Cesar Kunikov suffered the same fate as its fellow Novocherkassk. The only difference is that it met its...
Gentlemen, let's try and keep our heads on our shoulders. I was initially attracted to Slingshot because I like science fiction, first and foremost. We're awake. Good.
They wrote within the genre, but also managing to do something unique and original.
I have done a number of science fiction movies. Event Horizon, Matrix Trilogy, Slingshot is similar to Event Horizon in the ship's character as well, but this ship's character is even more mysterious if we can solve it.
If they supply F-16s, then they are talking about this and are apparently training pilots. This will not change the situation on the battlefield. Those were the words of Russian President Vladimir Putin when speaking to his country's Air Force pilots about the possibility of Russia ending up at war with NATO in March 2024. The remarks were followed by the chest puffing that's typical of Putin as he told the assembled pilots that Russia would destroy any F-16s that entered Ukraine, just as we destroy today tanks, armed vehicles, and other equipment, including multiple rocket launchers. These confident words from a man who's facing up to the seeming fact that Ukraine will be finally receiving F-16s thanks to the efforts of a coalition of countries, Norway, Belgium, Denmark, and the Netherlands being among them. These are the jests that Ukraine has sought for many months, as the country is increasingly battered by glide bombs launched by Russian fighters from behind the front lines, and their entry into the war will give Ukraine more options in the aerial fight. What does that mean for Putin? Despite his confidence in public, Putin dreads the arrival of F-16s on the Ukrainian battleground. In this video, we're going to explain why. But before we do, it's worth digging into the drama that surrounded the introduction of what may be the United States' most famous jet. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has made no secret of his desire to get his hands on F-16s. From the early days of the invasion, Zelensky has pleaded with his Western supporters to deliver the jets to his country, not least because their versatility.
Even more outrageous and continuing fallout from Trump's completely tone-deaf photo op at Arlington National Cemetery. It's the catastrophe that will not go away, the screw-up that will not end, and that's because it represents Donald Trump to the core. Tone-deaf, pathological narcissism, dim-witted, and a fundamental inability to grasp the supreme sacrifice of our military dead. Well, Trump doesn't understand the ultimate sacrifice, but the families do. And one military family with a fallen soldier buried at Arlington is blasting Trump for his staged photo op. They are pissed, and they have every right to be. As we reported earlier, Trump's trip to the cemetery ended up breaking the law. Military cemeteries are off limits to any kind of political campaigning or election-related activities. In addition, the section that Trump visited, Section 60, has a specific prohibition against photography or videotaping, due chiefly to the fact that this section is for military personnel who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, to some, it may seem a little overly selective to prohibit photography and videography in one section and not another. But Trump's photo op demonstrates exactly why this kind of prohibition is necessary. Take a look at this photo again. Here is Trump with the family of Darren Taylor. Notice the flowers at the foot of the grave. Now, earlier, Trump rather reverently placed those flowers at the foot of the monument. And naturally, a videographer recorded this highly ceremonial gesture. Now, a grieving family has a right to grieve in their own way. But when you look at this photograph, where is the ceremonial reverence that was being offered moments ago? Now, the family's facing into the camera with their thumbs up, imitating the completely unctuous gesture of Trump. What on earth does this thumbs up gesture possibly indicate in terms of Darren Taylor? What does it say in terms of his death, his sacrifice? That's the salute to a fallen hero. You'll note the three men on the left side of the grave are none of the Christians. Now look even closer. This family has of Darren Taylor, their love. But just to the left of her is the body of Andrew Christian Marcusson. The reverence that is due to Marcusson is completely absent. The family and friends has completely spread out and made the site all about Darren Taylor and Donald Trump. Andrew Marcusson.
So Donald Trump was walking around one of his country clubs having somebody literally wipe off the sweat on his face while he's playing golf. He has a sweat wiper, but I guess I understand why the sweat is coming down. A new Fox poll shows Donald Trump behind in several key states. He's down in Arizona, he's down in Georgia, he's down in Nevada, and previously we reported that he's down in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania as well. Also, if you look at the changes in just the state of the race in the states like Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona, for example, since President Biden left the race, we're talking about massive 5, 8, 10-point swings away from Donald Trump now towards Vice President Kamala Harris. I can't still get over that image of Donald Trump literally having a sweat wiper. Man of the people, right? Meanwhile, Donald Trump's stock continues to crash. Take a look at this Trump media stock right there. So I want to get this straight. While the American stock market right now is is up about 50% since Donald Trump stopped disgracing our great country. Donald Trump stock is down close to 60% over the past 6 months. It went.
Mental health professionals are back out there sounding the alarm bells once again about Donald Trump's very obvious, very clear cognitive decline. In fact, during recent interviews with Stat News, multiple mental health professionals suggested that Donald Trump might actually be suffering from Alzheimer's disease, and it's not for the reasons you think. These mental health professionals, and I'll read you what they said in just a minute, but they're not talking about, oh, Trump confuses people's names all the time, like confusing Nikki Haley for Nancy Pelosi or Biden for Obama. They say that's nothing. The real issue are the words that he does use, or the words he has to make up. His linguistic abilities, his fumbles, his right? Let me read you this. This first one is from Ben McAllister, a clinical psychologist who has done cognitive assessments for New York's Supreme Court. He's the one who played down the issue of confusing the names, that does nothing for me. But he did say, there's reasonable evidence suggestive of forms of dementia. The reduction in complexity of sentences and vocabulary does lead you to a certain picture of cognitive diminishment. He also flagged Trump using words in the incorrect order and even inventing words as possible signs of cognitive issues, which can come from aging or certain conditions like Alzheimer's. Now, this is something I have pointed out as well. Donald Trump is using very small words, and he's using very small words over and over and over and over and over. When Donald Trump says a sentence, he doesn't just say it and then he continues on. He will say the sentence and then he will say the sentence. He will say the sentence. And it's the sentence.
Okay. So, here we are, 21 minutes. What'd you get out of that? There's one of you there. Hey, how you doing? Thumbs up. So, it's been beautiful weather around me for the last almost 2 weeks. And then getting really go to bed at 10 o'clock and getting up at 10 o'clock. Can't beat it. Especially when I can give myself the clue to have a dream about X, Y, or Z. And you can, have lucid dreams. Try things out.
I'm going to get the pot coffee out here.
Yep. So, nothing is as it seems to be, right? Nothing. And there isn't any real clarity of truth. The only truth is what you feel in your heart, not your head. You have 3 brains in your body. You have the cottage cheese brain between your 2 ears, which is your random access memory. That's why your eyes, nose, all your sensory things are right in your head, right by your brain. So that keeps all of that in the main frame, right in the main view, in the screen. Take a beer.
There you go.
Thank you, beer. Oh. Coffee. Oh, yum, yum. So, let's see. We're getting no. Here we are, presidential election, right? Senators, governors, congressmen, dog catchers all being elected. There should be some level of interest and some level. This is where you pick your government. This is where you realize what you're going to get. Have you realized any of that? No.
The rates go back up in 2009, and they didn't. In 2009, everybody said the rates would go up in 2010, and they didn't. And then by the beginning of 2011, everybody was saying rates are definitely going to go up this year. And obviously, I've witnessed these guys be wrong for basically 3 years then. And I've started to lose basically a lot of faith in economists. Why do these guys keep saying there's going to be a recovery? So I know the theory. The theory is supposed to be zero interest rates, make it really cheap for you to borrow, they make it not really worth saving, so you should go out and spend money. And that hadn't happened. So the question is, why were people not spending money? So I went out and I started asking people, why are you not spending more money? Like, you can probably guess what people said, 9 out of 10 people said, they said, I'm not spending any more money because I don't have any more money, Gary.
And that got Gary thinking. If people aren't going out and spending money, the economy is probably not going to improve. If the economy doesn't improve, the Bank of England, who set the interest rates, will keep them low to encourage more spending. But if people still don't spend, the economy won't improve and interest rates will stay low. So you therefore started betting against the economy. You started saying, I don't think interest rates are going to go up.
Yeah.
How did it pay off for you?
So I started betting in 2011 that we wouldn't get a normalization of interest rates would stay zero. And by the end of that year, I was Citibank's most profitable trader in the world.
We contacted Citibank to check Gary's claim, and they declined to comment on Gary's employment at the bank or what profits the Sturt desk made during Gary's time there. Suffice to say, Gary was doing well financially.
I got paid more than $2 million that year.
You got paid more than $2 million because you made a large amount of money for them, and you get a cut of that.
Yeah, basically that's how it works. Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember finding out that you'd made that much?
So I think the thing is, that was my 3rd year trading. So by then, I had a pretty good idea of what traders got paid. The big shock for me was what I got paid after my 1st year trading.
Which is what?
I got paid that year £395,000.
£395,000.
Yeah, and
And you were how old?
I just turned 23.
Tell me about walking out of the meeting where you found that out.
I was in total shock. But I had no idea that traders made that kind of money. I had no idea. I come from a very poor background. My idea of making a lot of money was like if you made $100,000 in a year, that was like, wow, that's like amazing. That's kind of what I was hoping to make that year. And I remember exactly sitting in the meeting room and having my boss put this piece of paper down on the table. And I was looking on it for like 100,000. It wasn't there. And I pointed to the top number, which was this 395,000. I said to my boss, is it that number? And he started laughing. He said, yeah, it's that number. I remember exactly what I said, which is, wow, that's a lot of money. I don't remember walking out of the meeting, but the next thing I remember is sitting at my desk. And I remember, it seems absurd, but I was feeling like I was going to cry. I was sitting, and I didn't understand what was going on. And this guy, Bill, he came around the other side of me so the other traders couldn't see me. He just said, there's not really a parking kit anymore. There's a little sort of like green square of garage and being looked down on. And as soon as you make that money, the judgment disappears. Suddenly, when people know you're making a lot of money, people assume your clothes are expensive, even when they're not. People would be like, oh, where's that shirt from? It's nice. And it'd be like 20 quid from Topman. You know what I mean? So suddenly the judgment goes. And then suddenly I didn't want anything. I didn't want to be that guy.
20 quid show about where he came from. 20 quid is about $60, maybe between 40 and 60, right? So I don't buy anything. I bought this at the Goodwill, right? $3. Right? It's about my. So I live on nothing. I'm nothing. I live out in the woods and can't have too much food, otherwise the bear comes tears my house apart looking for a ring day. So it's let's see. So John, you got to write things in capitals. You're not screaming at me. You're just so I can see it. I can't see it. So money is irrelevant because money is a mechanism. It doesn't. There is no reality to it, right? It just is a mechanism to control, right? Control the people who make it, who spend it, who serve it, who have it as a god, right? So where's God to have money? But we live in a capitalist society, ergo we live in a godless society because money is all that is driven. We're driven by money. And, I can't come here without money, but these guys give a really nice breakfast for $8, and I can't beat it. So whenever I want to treat myself and talk to you guys, I come. The question is, right? So here this year is going to be, who's going to win? Donnie or the girl, right? And it's going to be interesting because it really doesn't matter. The other third October surprise, Biden, which is everyone's ignored now, declares martial law as president because he can. Democracy is being challenged, blah, blah, blah. And, we get jail for another however long. And if we get Donald, he will do to the max what he did when he was, the one thing that Donald did was confusion, disruption, did not deal with anything in a logical, if you are president, you're supposed to, your number one thing is not yourself, it's everybody else, the we and me, and that's not Donnie. But he will destroy this country. I mean, he will destroy the edifice of this country, let's say that, right? Because the country is not what it seems to be, first of all, and it's a shamanic illusion, right? There is no real democracy. We're not even a republic. We have killed more people than any other country. We have since the Revolutionary War, we have lost 70 million of our soldiers. 70 million with a million. It's not the people we killed. We killed hundreds of millions of people. Indigenous people, slaves, blacks, whites, women. Whatever gets in our way, we kill it. It's like around here, it's lush, green, beautiful, and normally they spray the Roundup in the spring, so things don't go from super lush green to dead, right? They just kind of brown out in the beginning, and then it slows everything down. So by this time, it's not going nuts. Well, they did it backwards, so it's all like, whoa, green, and then we got to cut this down. So they sprayed everything, and it's killing everything, the lake, everything. So people have no idea about what they do, right? What the effect is, right? My parents, we, they have a nice middle class, upper middle class, because their whole life was bent around showing off what stuff they had and what they did and how cool they were and blah blah blah. Their children were like jewelry things, or slaves, either way, free labor or oh look here, Johnny's going to school. So and I learned early to just be invisible, right? And then go do whatever the heck I wanted to do. And I did that so well. I picked up so many skill sets. I didn't have to just do one thing. Right? I had my whole life measured on that one thing. There were a number of things I did. Like when I was a scenic lighting designer, I learned how to paint scenery, right? And I was living in Soho amongst all these real artists, and I was working for them. I was wiring up their studios, Andy Warhol and Klaus Oldenburg and what's his name, Dali, and that was just the old school. Ron Gorchuk and Richard Serra and those guys, right? And then my own, cadre, guys and gals my own age, Kiki Smith and Judy Ripka and John Bowman, who else? A bunch more. Anyway, so whenever I was doing an event, I would do like a poster or a billboard, or do a whole wall, or decorate a stairwell in the school or whatever. And I was an environmental artist, alternative artist, performance artist, These are things that you don't make a lot of money at. You might get grants. I did get lots of grants, but that was a team sport. I didn't write the grants just for me. I did it for loads of people, and then did these big things, right? And that was cool. I didn't need to do any more than that. It was loads of fun, and other people did lots of work. I didn't have to do everything. Right? I did my shtick and my little special thing. Like like a good example is the what do they call it? The terminal show in Brooklyn, in the U.S. Military terminal over in the Navy. 6 million square feet, concrete building. Every bomb, bullet, tank went to Europe through that building. Every body came back. So it was just dripping with death, So Brooklyn Development Corp wanted to turn that into move the whole garment district over to there, and would have made sense because BQE was right there, the railroads were right there, the ships were right there, everything was right there, and the people were right there, right? I could have just walked to work instead of having to get on the subway and go up to 8th Avenue. So anyway, we did the show, and so they had clipped it off from the mains, right? So the building was dead, and so they found on site a small little generator, maybe 20 kVA, right? So I went over to where it was almost chained to where the transformers were, right? So I said, this means something. Went over there, wasn't really locked up, put gas in the thing. My friend had a car, we jumped to start, and boom, 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 started right up. And turned that juice, and so we wired it straight up to the line going from where the transformers were to, so it was, this thing was single phase 220. So we, did 3 hots, 220 and another hot. So it was a real 3-phase, but we had no motors, just lights, right? And a neutral, good ground. We went around turning on all the panels, bang, everything lit up. Everything was fluorescent light. So it's like we just lit up all the fluorescent lights and basically put a plug or two or 3 or 4 on each floor, so people could plug in things or tools or this or that. They had special needs. We would locate them closer to where power was. So that's what we did. That's me and Michael Curtin, Keene Curtin. I had 2 Michaels, Michael Keene and Curtin. Right, one was, and they were both amazing guys. Both amazing guys. Was tall and thin and looked like Jimmy Stewart, and he was a little younger than me, but he had his. I used to have I was the youngest guy to ever have a master's license, and he got it. Well, so we were the 2 amigos, and so I did a big mural on this big wall that you come in where the trains would pull in, right? I put this big mural up there, and I did it in like 2 days, right? Had a lot of latex, had a spray gun, and masking tape, and did this mural, right? And Judy Richter saw that, so she had to do a mural, and then a whole bunch of other people did murals, right? So I just did one, and it was like no big deal. It was kind of it was making no real statement. Except the colors I used, and I made everything look like big flowers, right? That was it. Right? I liked that. I'd gotten into doing that. It was easy, right? And so. Others went and did murals. About 20 other people did murals. And the beauty of that, there was so much space there, 6 million square feet. We had about, 1,000 artists. So, man, you could do whatever the heck you want there. So, people just decorated the heck out of that place. And I lit it up. So that's all I did. Me and Michael, we just got the juice running and lit the place up. And everything that lit up was amazing. They had these lights underneath where the loading platforms were, right? So people walked in on the railroad tracks, right? And which had someone, I don't know why, had ripped up the railroad tracks, and so it was just concrete, right? So you walked in, and these loading platforms were just above your head, but the lights were lighting everything up below, and you walk in, and it's long shadows, and it would do this really amazing effect, even during the day, because that part was inside the building, and where the loading platforms, they had this big crane that could lift everything up to whatever floor or take it down, and they could pack up these pallets before they had container ships. The Liberty ships were packed up this way, so they would pack everything and then stick it on the boat, right? Instead of taking one thing at a time, sticking it. So that's what won the war. That materials line. So anyway, that's kind of what I did. Same with the PS1. Same with Brooklyn Academy of Music. Same with I didn't. I just did some. How do we gonna light this thing up? Turn the switch. Oh, look, it lined up. So like in Soho, it was still DC there, right? There were all these factory buildings that ran on DC, and then Tesla made AC and had a induction motor ran on nothing. So anyway, but a lot of those buildings still had the DC, and whatchamacallit, the wires were as big as your arms, and I just made rectifiers, right? And they had these wooden boxes around these wires, and they just pour tar in there, and it would get like concrete. But I had these gigantic big railroad spikes, welded railroad, welding cable to them, and I would just pound them through the tar into the copper. Bingo, electricity. Put it in the rectifier. Now it's alternating current. And so, I must have made lots of those things and gave them off to, people in those buildings. Now they had AC, they could run their stuff off the refrigerator or this or that. Right? So, that's what I did my whole life. I'd be fooling around with something, I would see that, oh, look, someone could use this. Right? I do it. I get some money for it, and Not a lot, not like conquer the market or anything. No, I just kind of, and the same thing with, I bought stocks and invested when I had some money. I did that, and it just kept leaving a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I bought a lot of Apple and a lot of Facebook when they first came out. Same with Microsoft when they first came out, and in about 5 years, it was worth a lot of money. And I basically sold all of that around 2007. I did it 3 different times. I bought about for that in the 80s, and the stock-com thing, like, woo, and I bought a lot of that and did really good, right? And right, like I said, maybe I left New York in '88, so I think I sold virtually everything around '90, right? I was in Ithaca. I got, I lived in a nice house. I got a nice salary of $300 a month, and then, then my weekly salary was Benjamin's from this electrician I work for, right, off the books, because I was just taking care of everything for him. And it was like magic. And so he was happy, and I'm happy. He was a great guy. But he was a great musician, and he was smart enough. At 19, he left, and he went down to New Orleans and then to New York, and he was such a great guitarist. People said, "Whoa!" And so he started playing people like, Elvis's band and the Beatles and lots of different bands. And so he had tons of pictures of him with all these guys. He had all these guitars that all these people gave him. He had his own man cave that was great. On Friday, we'd go there. He'd have an envelope for me. We'd smoke a little food. He'd take that to dinner, and that was so. I was living a good life. I'd still be there in Ithaca, New York, if the lake effect wasn't there. I just got sick of waking up and be 60 in February. Oh, this is nice. Go up to class, teach a little, do some research, be in the library, come out, and to be a foot of snow. So, and that's how my life is motivated. I have no specific other than to serve God's love. That's it. And I've had that since I was a little kid. Right? No matter what happens, I get beat up by nuns, them priests, all kind. I've died a number of times, and whatever God wants. God's got my back. I'm not worried about it, right? So I'm talking to you guys, right? And so here we are heading into. If you think things have been weird in the last 24 years, right? First of all, you should go 24 years before that, right? Go back to 76, right? Look at everything from 76 on. Look at everything from 63 on, right? Look at everything from 1947 on. Just keep doing that every 20 or so years. The world is like, wow, right? Listening to CNN or MSNBC or Fox or any of those potato head outlets, at least I tell you, don't believe anything I say. This is all for your entertainment's sake. So Johnny there, at land was high, whatever that means. Speaking a full sentence. What else? What time is it? How much juice do I have here? Oh, I think I might go. Okay. Unless you guys have something to say, this is a, whatchamacallit, there's 3 of you there. Nobody's got anything to say. The wars in Africa are so much worse than we're being shown Ukraine and how are you? I'm doing pretty good. Honeymoon August. I love honeymoons. They're the best of times. Tell us about yourself, honeymoon. I like that. It's a name. Honeymoon artist, yes. So physically, I'm always pretty much this, right? Near death, but alive. I'm an artist. So what's your form? What artist are you? Visual artist, musical artist, poetry artist? What are you? What kind of artist? All the artists put together. It's me, art party ringleader, cultural provocateur. You know, like the TV show Paladin, right? I've done Will Trammell, that was me. It's everything with my hands. Okay, that's pretty much everything. Play the piano with your hands. See, clay, plants, stewing. I like stewing. Meatball sandwiches, yes, stewing. Writing, yep. So, honeymoon artist, why don't you get a hold of me at dudeawake42 at Gmail, and I'll send you some of my novels. I need some reflection on my writings. I've been writing now. I've been writing my whole life, but I've been writing. I left John Boy in 2017, give or take, and really haven't been back there. I was back there twice, one Thanksgiving and one Valentine's Day for about a week, both days. I went to visit him. Then it snowed. Couldn't get out. When I could, I left. And so, really haven't seen John since 2017. Visited a couple of times, but that's about it. And he's never really changed. You know, he's not doing. He's doing what he's doing, right? And he'll do that until he doesn't, right? And he has great opportunities. You know, he doesn't really have to worry about anything, but he worries about only himself. And that must, you know, oh, isn't that cute? He's like a puppy that will raise her or something like that. But he's up there at the hill. And the hill is probably one of the most spiritual places on earth. And that's why I lived, you know. 2014, I died. I kind of was in Florida. Luckily, I was, right? And I got myself to a semi-mobile state and got back to the hill in Mayish, somewhere around there. And basically took care of myself and lost weight and got stronger, and here I am. And friends came and helped. A number of friends came and got me. You know, wouldn't be good for me to stay up there by myself. They came and got me. Stayed with them a while. They nursed me back. Some gave me jobs, you know, just to give me something to do. Plus, they had stuff they wanted me to look at and see, you know, give them an insight into their business. Anyway, I did that, and then in the spring of 2017, I basically left Roanoke. Had a lot of fun, did a lot of things. I mean, John was definitely a extraordinary experience. Gave me great insight on many things, and introduced me to you guys. I never thought of doing this until John Boy. So that's kind of where everything with my hands. Yeah. So so of all the strange, weird stuff, you know, it's not even close to how strange it really is. So we're going to see that in this presidential election, right? And from that point on, it's just going to get stranger. Now, I would say get in touch with who and what you are on the inside. Get mellow with that. See your connection to the rest of humanity and all our relations. I mean, everything else on this planet. Like you get in touch with your hands and your heart, and go from there. Okay. So anyway, it's almost been an hour, so I'm gonna zip out of here. I'm gonna go run some errands. Maybe I'll talk to you again. But enjoy your life. Treat each other well. Love yourself and your neighbors. Right? That's all you got to do. Pretty much simple. Have a good 20, meaning know where you are, and be aware of your 360, your surroundings. Keep an eye on things 2 blocks away. See some moron come in 2 blocks, just get out of the way. Okay? So honeymoon, drop me a line on your, let's see if I can. Email honeymoon artist. Is that your work? Is that you? Ramiro, is that you? Ramiro? People also ask, how do you write a professional email to an artist? Take care. I always will. Mother Mary. Mother Mary is. Did you ever hear the song in the Beatles' White Album, number 9? Number 9. Number 9. It was a da-da-da-da-da. And she hit the big time along the USA. So Mother Mary is this, is Gaia, is any of the female gods that take care of business. That's Mother Mary. And Mary, Jesus Christ's mom, different story. She'd say in a league by her own. So, and she hit the big time. Do 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 do. The honeymoon, like I said, just give me a buzz. Give me a buzz now. I'll take a look at your in my emails. And she hit the big time.
Oh my God.
No, this is temporary.
Those kids over there having fun.
It was there forever.
See you, kids.
I was gonna go see-